So last time we got up to V'inav Shkol Omar, and we started that, and then we got cut off. I'm not sure where we got cut off, so we'll start from there again, and we'll learn with the Pnei Moshe. V'inav Shkol, which is over here. V'inav Shkol Omar. It says Pnei Moshe Mikor Dedina Pircha Mechem Ma'islo Mizaro. They wanted to say that the wife of a Kohen who is let's say a Kohen and Amona. Amona is not normally is okay for a regular Kohen, just not for Kohen Gadol. But once she marries the Kohen Gadol, she is a Chalola, and she can no longer marry a regular Kohen. So how do we know that? So we wanted to say that if the children which are never were over an Avera, they become Chalolim. She didn't have Avera that she married a Kohen Gadol she's not supposed to marry. She should become a Chalol as well. If they're Chalolim, certainly she should become a Chalol. So the Gemara says, well, maybe not. It says Imnav Shkolomar. Maybe you want to say to Mikor the Dina Pircha that the basic of Kal V'chomer is difficult. Because where are you going to bring the Kal V'chomer from? Mizaro, from his children. If the Kohen Gadol's children without money become Chalolim, so certainly that money should become Chalola? Not necessarily. Malazarosh can Tziraso Ba'avera. The children have a deficit. They were conceived as through an Avera. So if they were conceived through an Avera, so that's why they have become Chalolim. Maybe the Amona, the widow who was born kosher, maybe she remains kosher. Maybe only the children who are born by Avera become Pasul Chalolim. Maybe not the woman, the Amona, who was not born a Chalola. So Gemara says, fine. If you want to say that the Kal V'chomer doesn't work, actually, sorry, means if you don't want it, it's like this. If you want to say Kal V'chomer doesn't work, right? In Navshcha, if you want, Lomar could say the following. As if there are a few words missing here. The words missing are the words that Pnei Moshe brings down. If you have a difficulty that, well, it's not a good Kal V'chomer because maybe the children become Chalolim because they were conceived in Avera, as opposed to Amona, who was born kosher. In Navshcha, if you want, you could say lo yachul. Now it doesn't say lo yachul in the Torah. It says lo yachel. So that's an easy typo. Lo yachel. It says lo yachel means lo yechalel. What does it mean, lo yechalel? It's an active verb. It means that you shouldn't take something which you don't do this because you're going to take something which was kosher till now and you're going to defile it. You're going to make it not kosher. So lo yechalel means don't take something which was kosher, in other words, the wife, and make her not kosher. And so that's what it's saying. It's going on the wife as well. Even somebody who's originally kosher means Amona, you would make her a cholol now. Don't make her a cholol. So from this we see, so the Torah says, don't be mechalol this woman, that even the woman becomes a chalola, not just the children. Okay, it says in the pasuk explicitly, lo yechalel zaro. That it says, don't make your children chalolim. But lo yachel also teaches us that don't take somebody who was kosher till now and make them now chalolim. Okay, so that's the end of that discussion. Now we come to a different discussion. Bar Pedoy, well, actually not yet. Bar Pedoy Omer hamachalel lo nischalel. The person who was mechalel Kohen doesn't become a chalol. We said last week that a Kohen who has relations with a woman who is not kosher lakuna, he himself remains kosher lakuna as long as he gets rid of her. So how can this be mechalel? How can this person be mischalel? So what's Bar Pedoy coming to say? So Pnei Moshe says Bar Pedoy Omar lefrushi tam lemasnisa is coming to explain the reason of our Mishnah. My tema ein omrim yeh says that ben grusha tachtav. Why don't we say that that if they try to make this guy a ben grusha, so then he should become a ben grusha? Why don't we say that? So he says, by them, Mechal lo niskalo, Karmina le'el, Shu Mechalel zaro beinu atzmo niskalo. He is Mechal his children. He himself does not become Mechalel. Ve'echzem yischalel. So how could the Eid Zomen become an Achalel? Sheina bo el chalel v'lo chilel. He never was successful in being Mechalel. So I think the Bavli also brings down this drasha, but then it discusses it. But here it doesn't discuss it at all. So he says very simple. He says if you can't make an Eid Zomen ben Gusha ben Chalutza, because if the Kohen who is Mechalel somebody else, he can't become a ben Gusha ben Chalutza. He doesn't become a Chalel. He goes scot-free as long as he gets rid of that woman. So the Eid Zomen, who never was Mechalel, he certainly can't become a Chalel. And that's it. And that's why we say by Ben Gusha Ben Chalutza, you get Malkus. There's no making the person into Ben Gusha Ben Chalutza. Okay. So that is again, I think in the Bavli it's a much longer discussion. Here the discussion ends here. That's it. Now the Gemara goes on to another discussion. Now this discussion here, I'm going to read the words, but they really make no sense. Right, Edim which became Ein Zomi Rabbi Yochanan Sheker. Some sort of Gzeira Shava. Edim Sheniz Damu v'Chozim Nishtakru. Rabbi Yochanan Sheker. Let's say Russia. So if they first said Ein Sheniz Damu Sheker, then Ein Sheniz Damu then became. It was found out that they were Edim Sheker, also Sheker. So what does this mean? Ein Sheniz Nishtakru seems to mean the same thing as Ein Sheniz Damu. What does it mean? She's damu v'chozim nishtakru. Eight sheker. That is an Eid Zomen. So what does it mean? Eidim she's damu v'chozim nishtakru. And how's it different in the first line, which is says Eidim she's damu. So all the Mefarshim have very grave difficulties with this line. I'm going to go with the Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael here. The Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael is a commentary which was written in the early 20th century, early 1900s. The author of this commentary lived in Brisk in Lithuania. It's nothing to do with Reb Chaim Brisker. Is the name of Rabbi Rabinovich, and he wrote this sefer on all of Yerushalmi, also on Bavli as well. And what he does is he goes a little bit far in changing the gersos in the Yerushalmi. He does take liberties which other people don't take. But sometimes it makes it much easier if you're willing to take those liberties. So that's what we're going to do over here. We're going to go with the Shai Torah's Girsa in this Gemara, even though he might have gone a little bit too far. Maybe don't have to go as far as he did, but it makes it much easier to deal with. So let's see what he does here. Okay. So it says, we just read these words. Eidim she's damar Rabbi Yochanan sheker. Tzarech lomar. What is it? What should it say? Say, Eidim shehukashu b'achachach nizdamu. So the hukashu is when two sets of Eidim contradict each other. When two sets of Eidim contradict each other, so then you can't accept either set because we don't know who to accept. And if Reuven Shimon said Levi killed Yehuda, and Yisachar Zvulun said Levi did not kill Yehuda, they're Eidim who are makrish. And we can't use either one of them. They contradict each other. We don't know who's telling the truth. Under normal circumstances, they both are shot down. So now the question is, what if you have Eidim who are Mukhashim, and we can't use them? And then they become Eidim Zomin. Another group of Eidim says, Reuven and Shimon, not only were they lying when they said Levi killed Yehuda, but they couldn't have seen it because he Manu Yisem. You were with us in another city on that day. So can he become Eid Zomim or not? An Eid Apostle can't become an Eid Zomim, right? If you have a person who's Apostle Eidus, he's a Ganab, he's a Gadlin, he's a Rotzeach, a woman, somebody who's Apostle Lahaid cannot become an Eid Zomim by definition. An Eid Zomim has to be somebody who can testify, but when they say Eidus, they're lying because they couldn't have seen it. But somebody who's postulated, he can't become an Ozema because his testimony wasn't good to begin with. So what about an aide who was contradicted? He wasn't possible because he was a Ganav or a Goslin or whatever it was, a Korov, a relative, but we couldn't accept his testimony. Can he afterwards become an aide Zomim nevertheless? That's the question. So Eidim Shukushu V'Acharkach Nizdamim, right? The Rabbi Yochanan and Perish V'Ab Eidus Nefesh are talking about a capital case, a case where they're testifying on a death penalty. Rabbi Yochanan and Nerogin. Everyone says, yeah, they're killed. They're Eidim Zomim. It's true. They couldn't accept their testimony because they were contradicted by other Eidim, but they could still become Eidim Zomim. And the way we understand this and learn this is that an Eid Pasul can't become an Eid Zomim. An Eid Kosher, whose Eidus we can't accept, he can become an Eid Zomim. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Okay? Again, an Eid Pasul can't become an Eid Zomim. He doesn't have a Chalei Shem Eid. It's not a category of Eid. An Eid Kosher, whose testimony we can't accept, Rabbi Yochanan says that person can become an Eid Zomim. So Rabbi Lezer argues. Rabbi Lezer Amar, Ein Nerogin. No, he can't become an Eid Zomim, therefore he can't be killed. Once his testimony is rejected because he was mukhrash, that's it. We can't accept it. This testimony is not accepted, so then he can't become an Eid Zomim. How do they learn this out? So Rabbi Yochanan sheker. It says sheker twice. Perush says this is the Rabbi Shai's explanation. The chsib eidei sheker. It says by stam lying witnesses. Lo saneh b'recha eid sheker. Don't lie about in testifying. Uksib zomimim. It says about eidim zomimim. Ha'eid sheker ana be'achiv asis lo kasher zomim lasos achiv. So from this we learn lemeidim av mokum shutchila, even a place where initially it could be they were lying already. They were lying. They're eidim ksherim who were lying, and that's why they're contradicted. And they were nischayvu malchus mishum lo saneh. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, who Yerushalmi seems to be going with, alav shein bo ma'aseh like love, they can get malchus because of lo saneh. Im nizdamu achrei chei chalav misa. If they become eidim zomim afterwards, they're chayav misa as well. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, eidim shehukhashu b'sof huzmu, eidim were first were contradicted and then became a zomim. You can when they're hukhashu, if they were lying, they'll get malchus. But when they don't have to turn their eidim zomimim, so then they get killed again because they were eidim ksherim who lied, not eidim psulim. An eid pasul can't be an eid zomim, but an eid kosher who lied can become a zomim. The lush in the Bavli is hakosha tchilas hazomim. The hakosha is really a part and parcel of the process of hazama. When it's one first an aid is contradicted, and then you prove it's an aid zomim. So it's not it's a process. But Rebbe Lezer argues. Lezer Russia. Nemar Russia b'chayave misos. It says Russia by people who are chayav misa. But Nemar Russia b'chayave makkos. It says Russia by people who chayav makkos. Ma Russia shenemar b'chayave makkos ein makkos eitzel mamon. It says Perish Kimo b'Mishnah Gimel Perek Zeh Kol Mishalim b'Eidim Zomim Eino Loka. Anybody who when you pay money because you need zomim, you don't get malchus. The mayor disagrees, but the Chachamim hold that when you get it's either malchus or mammon, not both. Right? So yeah, so only if you get mammon, you don't get, but they don't have to pay. They don't get malchus. Right? So the afrosh shnema etzem mechuyave misos, even though so to the Russia which is stated by mechuyave misos, ein misa etzem malchus. So there's no misa by malchus. Perish. V'chomakom sheish v'edim zomim malchus u'misa. Anybody say there's malchus and misa? How is there malchus and misa? Because first they were mukhashim and then they were muzamim. Lokev enomes. You get malchus and you don't die. And the Bavli Baba Kami says that's a different approach there. But so what's the saying? They're saying that no, once an aid is no longer valid aid, he's subject to Losan B'Echayit Shaker. He lied, so then he can't become a zomin. And even if it was a kosher aid, he was kosher aidus. Once his edus is rejected because we're afraid he's lying or we proved he's lying, he can't become an Odzomim. So all he gets is Malchus, not Misa. It's like Kedei Rishoso, but in a different way, right? He only gets the Risha of Malchus, and he doesn't graduate to Misa, because by the time he gets, we want to move to Odzomim, he's already an aid who's puzzled. In other words, testimony we can't accept, and therefore he can't become an Odzomim. Okay, so again, the machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Eliezer is, if you have Eidim who are first Mukhashim and then Muzamim, can you put them to death or not? Yochanan says, yeah, because the Gzeir Shav of Sheker. Since Lo Samrecha Eid Shoker and Shein Sheker Eid, it must be that the same act which you get Malchus for Lo Saneh, you can get Misa if you're found to be Eid Zomim. And the fact you're over Lo Saneh first doesn't make a difference. Afterwards, if you find your Eid Zomim, we're going to give you Misa. Too bad. Okay, that's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Les says no, it can't be that way. It's like we learn Russia, and just like we say by Russia that you can't give Malchus and Mammon. It's either or, and therefore, if you have Mammon, if Eid Zom is Chayiv Mammon, you can't give him Malchus. So too, if an Eid is Chayiv Malchus first, and then Misa, because the Chiyuv of Malchus is on account of his Eidus being rejected, so then by the time you get around to be Mezim, it's too late. You can't impose a death penalty on account of the Azama. Okay, that's the way the Shai Torah so fixes the text. Let's see the text inside again, which again doesn't really, the way we have it, it's very difficult to understand, if at all. The way we have here is Einush Zamamu, Rabbi Yochanan Sheker. Einush Zamamu. So again, what does it mean? Einush Sheker. Why need Sheker? Einush Zamamu. Says Eid Sheker Eid. You don't need Zer Shofar for that. Einush Zamamu because of Nishtaku. Rabbi Yochanan Sheker. Okay, that makes more sense because it's two separate things. But still, what do you mean Nishtaku? Nishtaku is Nizdamamu. It's the same thing. Eid Sheker Eid. So change it. It says no. It means that first there was Lo Saneh B'Echad Shaker because there was Akhlasha, and then there was Eid Sheker Eid because of Azama, and therefore they be put to death. Rabbi Lezer Omer Russia. It says Russia. Nema Russia Mechuyve Misos. Nema Russia Mechuyve Makkos. Ma Russia Shnemer Mechuyve Misos Ein Mamon Eitzel Misa. Avash Shnemer Mechuyve Makkos Ein Mamon Eitzel Makkos. So again, it's a very strange if you read it this way, because we're not Mammon wasn't an issue here. We're not talking about Mammon. We're talking about the Nefashos, right? Mammon is not a factor here. So what do you mean? Ein Mammon Eitzel Makkos. And you started talking about Mechuyave Misos, and then you finish with Mammon and you finish with Mammon. So it doesn't follow. So that's why Shai so says that it says Russia by Mechuyave Misos and Russia Mechuyave Makkos, and just like there by Mechuyave Makkos, you can't be Lokim Mishalem. Avosh Shneim Mechuyave Misos Ein Misa Eitzel Ma Russia Mechuyave Malchus Ein Mammon Eitzel Malchus. Avosh Shneim Bar Mechuyave Misos Ein Misa Eitzel Malchus. Okay, so again, he's changing it very severely, and I don't have to change the gears of that severely. But as the gears is written in front of us, Hotnish converter. There's no way to read the words. So as the Shai so comes along and changes the gears. And the truth is, everybody has to come along here and do something in order to make the Gemara make sense. And that's, as I said, that's what makes Yerushalmi much more fun than Bavli. Because in the Bavli, you can never get away with this. There's no way you can change a gear like that, as Shai Yisrael does, and live. Because you can't come after Rashi changed the Gersos, and the Gra changed the Gersos, the Bach changed the Gersos, and the Gra changed the Gersos, and say, well, I have my own Gerso change. Doesn't work that way. It's too late. But in the Yerushalmi, it's done all the time. Because since it was, as I said last week, since Yerushalmi was never explained by Rishonim, that gives, the texts were never consistently edited by Rishonim, That gives Achronim the right to come along and suggest their own yourselves.
So even nowadays, technically, someone like you or me, whatever, could change it. Obviously, not me, but someone like you can change it.
And Yirtzeh Hashem, someday you too will be able to change it.
But technically, someone can change it nowadays.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Oh.
Yes.
Actually,
What?
you do it all the time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Because if you can change, the most fun is if you can change a gear so less than other Achronim did. Because that way, presumably, the less you have to change it, the more likely it is to be correct. So that's a tremendous fun. Tremendous, I know. Okay, so we can go on now. The Gemara goes on and says, Bar Pedoya Omen. Then this going on, Chavi goes. Bar Pedoya Omar Hu Yanus. He goes to the Ir Miklat, and this is in the Bible too. The low Zomamin. The Eidim Zomamin don't go to an Ir Miklat. It is a chiyuv on the person. And Mefnei Moshe makes that clear. He says down here, he says, it's him and not the Zomamin. Now we go to the second part of the Mishnah, which in the Bavli is a separate Mishnah. The aim is Yerushalmi Makkos. They don't pay the entire ksuba, right? Because he might never have to pay the ksuba. I'm sorry, he might have had to pay the ksuba anyway. So therefore, they didn't necessarily cause him a loss of the entire ksuba. So how do we reckon how much they have to pay? So he say, Avoshamim Tevas Hanoya Ksuba. Tevas Hanoya is always a term of the value now based on its potential. The good of the potential benefit you would get. And what is Tevas Hanoya? Ketzad Omer Kam Adam Rotzitem B'Ksuvasa Shelzu. How much a person is willing to bet, to gamble, to give this woman, to buy the ksuba of this woman. Shema tamus b'chaye bala. Maybe she's going to die in her husband's lifetime, and then he won't get anything, right? Because then there's no payout of the ksuba. O shema yamus bala b'chayeha, or maybe her husband will die first. V'yirash halas ksubasa, and then since he will get the ksuba because he bought the right to the ksuba from the woman. So the fikachu mishalim, based on that he pays. Now in the Bavli, there's a whole discussion of according to him, according to her, according to Isha the Ksubasa, and so that whole discussion is not in the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi usually is much more simple, much more straightforward, and the Yerushalmi doesn't get into those details here. It just says based on that chesed tobas hano. It's interesting though that at the time of the Gemara that would be less than it would be today, because at the time of the Gemara, women were considered more likely to die than men. Because women died in childbirth and other circumstances much more often than men did, much earlier than men. So binat the Tobas Hano would be worth much more today than would be worth at the time of the Gemara. So, but that's again, we have to go to the marketplace. Find out how much a person we willing to pay the ksuba now, and that's the value of the ksuba today. Because we want to penalize Eidim Zomim, Basher Husham. Right now, what is the ksuba worth? And that's what they have to pay. Now, what the ksuba could be worth in the future, because it's not worth that much yet, because it wasn't collected. But how much the ksuba is worth today, that is evaluated by how much could be sold in the marketplace to somebody who wants to gamble that he's only going to get it if the husband dies before the wife. Very straightforward. Okay, let's go on to the next Mishnah. And again, the Mishnah, I think this Mishnah is considerably longer in the Yerushalmi and the Bavli. And there's not much to say about the Mishnah, so we'll be able to next time go straight to the Gemara. So the Gemara Yerushalmi says, the Mishnah says, "Mi manu bishponi shuchayev chaver elef zuz." He owes his friend $1,000. Did you learn this in the Bible already? Did you guys learn this Mishnah?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go through it relatively quickly. Mi manu bishponi shuchayev chaver elef zuz. We testify that Reuven owes Shimon 100 zuz. Amnas litenam mitankan ad 30 yom. You should pay back within 30 days. Vurmen become as a shonim, and he says it was only on. I know it was for 10 days, 10 years. Only Kamadam Rotzi Tem you Elab Zuz Biyoda Benli name Ekan Shloshim Yom. We reckon how much a person would pay to keep $1,000 for 30 days, or for 10 years. And of course, there's this whole discussion of Shemitah, which is Gemara is going to bring up. Medium honor beast Zuz. We testify that that Reuben owes Shimon $200. The names of Zomin and the Zomin Lokin and Mishalmi. Going right mayor, they get Makkos and have to pay. Shalah Hashem Mevili de Makkos, Mevili de Tashlumin. Because they're two separate obligations. The obligation for the Losana and the obligation for Ein Zomin. So they get Makkos for Losana and they pay on account of Eidim Zomimim. The very mayor. You only get if you pay, you don't get Makkos. Medium on a beach, Makkos are boy. So similarly, if they testify that somebody is liable to get Malchus, and they turn out to be Eidim Zomimim, so then Lokim Shmoni, Kohen Rameir get 80. Mishum Sana Lo Sana Reacha Eight Shaker Mishum Asito Kasher Zoma Lasos Lachim Divrei Meir. Like we said before, there are two shemos here. There's only one shame. They don't explain why, but there's only one shame. You only get 40 Makkos. Mishalshim and Mammon, you can distribute the amount of money you're obligated between the Eidim Zomim. If there are two Eidim, each pays 50%. If there are three Eidim, each pays a third. Mishalshim and Makkos, but you can't distribute Makkos. Each aid gets the number of Makkos, which is the full number of Makkos. Kesar, how's it work? They testify that he's chayiv to spend 200 zuz. They find being zomim. They distribute the money amongst themselves, amongst the eidim. They testify that he's chayiv Makkos arboim. So ein they found each one gets 40 Makkos. Okay, we have time to start tomorrow, so let's start it. Rabbi Baba Memo Rav Amo Rav Master B'Shem Rav said so in the Bible you would have Amar Rabbi Baba Memo Amar Rav Amram Amar Rav Master Amar Rav. Yerushalmi always is much shorter than that. Yerushalmi just says Rav Baba Memo Rav Amram and Rav Master B'Shem Rav, and it's not clear if it's Amar Amar Amar. It could be that all three of them said the name of Rav because you don't have a sequence of Amars here. So either it was a sequence and we just had the word Omar, or they all said the name of Rav. Hamavas Chavero, Tovo, somebody who loans his friend money on the condition that he won't demand the money. So here it says, Shvis Misham Tosa. Shvis is Misham. The Shai Torah 6-0 is good. So here is where I'll tell you what he says there. He says in Shvi's Perakir Base that the proper gear says ain't Shvi's Misham Tosa. Right, so we have two possibilities which are the exact opposite of each other. One of that is that somebody who's according to the Gerson argument we have in front of us, it says that if I loan you money and I say I'm not going to demand it for you, I'm never going to demand it back. When you want to pay back, you pay me back. So according to argument, Shvius Misham Tosa, the Shvius is Mishamit. According to Tzaratar Tzol and Shvius, no, the gear says the opposite. Because he's never Toveim, ain't Shvius Misham Toso. Shvius is not Mishamitin. So it's interesting. The Radbaz, who's a commentator in the Rambam, in Perak Test of Shemitah B'Yovel Halacha Test says in justifying arguments are here. He says Ma'avas Chaber Amnash Lo Tovo Shvius Misham Toso. Says why Shvius Mishamit? He's not Tovei him. The whole idea of Shvis is not allowed to be Toveh, but he's not being Toveh anyway, right? So the Ramban says, anybody who owes money, whenever he sees the lender, he feels guilty. And it says, if the lender's claiming the money. Even though the lender promised not to claim it, the whole existence of a lender means I feel oppressed, and I feel that I've got to pay. So even though he's not Toveh actively, it's as if he's Toveh. Because anytime I see him, I feel, the pasuk says lotingos, don't take a bite out of him. The rabbi says I feel nogos on my own. Okay, so so again, it could go either way, and we have to learn it according to both your souls. But the pasuk shot and the pasuk yoseh here is that there is no ein shvis misham taso, and therefore let's go with that girsa that shvis is shvis misham taso. And then we have a question. Vatzinon, and we have to learn this question both ways. Hashoch is a para v'chilka b'Rosh Hashanah. The halacha is, of course, you're allowed to shech an animal on Yontif. We don't do it anymore. But you're allowed to shech an animal on Yontif. It's not a problem. It's ochel nefesh, right? You're a butcher. You shech an animal on Yontif. You're not allowed to make a cheshbon with your customers how much money they owe you, right? Not allowed to, because that's not doing. You're not allowed to shech an animal. You're not allowed to do mekach or memka. Not allowed to do commercial activity on Yontif. So you can't weigh it, and you can't set a price, right? So the question is, okay, you can't weigh it, can't set a price. It turns out that the first day of Rosh Hashanah was not Rosh Hashanah. It turns out, but now of course it doesn't happen anymore. But back then it was possible that the first day of Rosh Hashanah ended up being the last day of Elul, because the Aim didn't come on time. Because back then, the reason I had 2 days Rosh Hashanah is because Aim might not come on time. So therefore, they made the first day of Rosh Hashanah al Safek. And then they said, if the Aim Taka didn't come, the next day was Rosh Hashanah. The Aim did come, that was Rosh Hashanah. If the Aim didn't come, next day was Rosh Hashanah. So if the Aim did come, that was Aleph Tishrei. If the Aim didn't come, the next day was Aleph Tishrei. So now, when is Shemitah Mishamet? At the end of Shemitah, when Rosh Hashanah starts. So the first day Yontif, which they thought was Yontif, at that point they still thought it was Yontif, they shechted an animal, and the sheikhah distributed it. And now it turns out it wasn't Rosh Hashanah. But he didn't set a price, but he didn't weigh it, but it was understood. They're going to pay back after Yontif. But now what happens? Do they have to pay? Now the Rosh Hashanah actually was after they shechted the animal. Do they have to pay him back? Or do we say Shvis and Misham make that loan? It's a case where the loan wasn't probably set up as a loan. And it's like, I'm not sure Tova. So the question is whether Shvita is going to Misham it or not. Okay, we're going to run out of time before we manage to get into the case in greater detail. But you see the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, so the Gemara is going to discuss whether this is suitable to be Tovei Rosh Hashanah, and therefore whether Shemitah should be Mishamet or not Mishamet, but we'll leave that for next time because otherwise it's going to get cut off in the middle. Okay, guys, have a good night. See you, Mr. Shem, tomorrow.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'm going to put up the shir and send it to
Have
everybody.
a good night. Have a good night.